Hi, welcome to today's video. My name is Paul. So this is, I guess, part one of 3 videos that I'm doing, and they're all charcoal landscapes. They're all short videos. The reason I'm doing the charcoal landscapes, well, there's a few different reasons. But like I said before, if this channel has any reason for existing, it's trying to encourage more people to do art. And I know that one of the things that can put people off is not knowing where to start, maybe, and the expense. When you look at the price of a tiny little tube of watercolor paint, can be quite expensive. It's the same for oil paints and acrylic paints. They're not cheap. Whereas charcoal, the vine charcoal that I'm using, you can get very expensive charcoals, but the vine charcoal I'm using is very cheap. It's like a few pounds or euros or dollars or whatever currency you're using. It's not expensive. The paper I'm using is also just a cheap ordinary sketchbook. There's nothing special about the paper in any way. It's not special charcoal paper or anything. So I think that's the first reason, that charcoal is just, it's a bit more accessible for more people, I think. The other thing about charcoal is it's very good for making lots of different types of marks on the paper. And although this is a landscape drawing, it is just basically making marks on the paper. And you can see I'm using some tissue paper to smudge and create different shapes and marks. So it's great for sort of experimenting and trying different things. At the beginning, you don't even have to do a landscape. You can just make different marks and shapes and things on the paper with the charcoal. Other things that I'm using are, I have a little bit of white Conte pastel. The Conte pastel is just a hard pastel. You don't need to use that. It's optional. If you have it, fantastic. If you don't, it's not completely necessary. I also use a kneadable eraser, and I think in this one I also use a charcoal pencil. You can get charcoal in different formats, so you can see sitting on the right hand side there, that's a little bit of vine charcoal, which is just willow twigs, usually willow, that's been turned into charcoal. You can also get compressed charcoal, where they create the charcoal, but then they crush it up into powder, and then they use, I guess, pressure and whatever else, maybe water, and they form a kind of dough, and then they squeeze that into a mold, and you get this compressed charcoal. It has usually a circular or a square cross section, whereas the vine charcoal is just a twig that's been turned into charcoal, so it can be more irregular in shape. Another form, then, you can see me using a charcoal pencil. You can also get charcoal in other form. You can get it in powder form, for example, which is really messy. The charcoal is a messy medium to use, but powdered charcoal is really messy. When you're smudging, I use a piece of tissue paper. You can just use your hand if you want. The advantage using the tissue paper is it is slightly less messy, and also you don't get fingerprints appearing. You may or may not want to have fingerprints. It could be part of the drawing process. It could be part of your art to include your fingerprints. I just prefer not to, but other things I can say is this is not from a photograph. It's not done outdoors. It's just partly memory and partly imagination. So when I start off, it's like these videos, I just sort of ramble on. I don't have a script or anything. And it's the same with the drawings. I don't have any reference. I just start making marks and see what happens. Okay, but this is scan of the final drawing. Simple composition, but I like the final outcome. So like I say, if you want to get into art, consider doing some charcoal sketching. It's a good, accessible way of getting started.